Hello everyone, this is Florian Munsch from Gold Geld Welt, and today I'm here with Frank Basa and Matthew Halliday from Canada Cobalt Silver Works. And yeah, on our websites, Miningscout and Gold Geld Welt, we covered the story for quite some while, but we didn't do an interview for a while, so I'm very I have the pleasure to welcome two guests here today. So hello Frank and hello Matthew.
Well, hi, Florian. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, good to have you here, gentlemen. So for investors new to the story, or for some people who got in touch with Canada Cobalt Silver Works, but maybe lost touch, or can you summarize what you are doing, where are you doing it, and what's your business model?
Well, what we're really doing here, Florian, we're doing multiple things at the same time. The reason we're doing this is trying to getting permits here. We don't want to first, develop a resource and then wait for 2 to 3 years to get our permits. So in conjunction to our drill program, we're also going for permits for the underground at Castle. Those who have been following us, we had great success finding high-grade silver and cobalt at the Castle mine. So that's going through a permitting process. We bought the equipment to already extract a bulk sample, so that's ongoing. We also have 2 high-grade tailings deposits, which we're going to drill and develop a resource. And we're also working with our Retox. Retox, for those who have been following us, we did produce what we call cobalt sulfate battery grade for Somito specs. So now what we're doing with those Retox, we're actually having a pilot plant built by SGS. And then following that pilot plant being built and at their labs, we're going to build one on site to produce larger quantities of cobalt sulfate, nickel sulfate. And now we find from Samsung that silver is a critical element in the EV market. So we kind of have all the metals that are really required to actually, address the EV market. So primary thing is, we're doing quite well. Our drill program, we've been very successful. Most of our drill results, we've been only releasing the higher grades, but we have also a lot of other grade material, but we've been in the 30,000, 70,000 grams per ton. Our first maiden resource was about 7.2 million ounces at 252 ounces a ton. More than likely the highest grade, silver grade underground that probably anybody's ever seen in the world. So we're still
I think the market noticed that. I remember like 70 kilos per ton silver on which intersect, which strike length?
Well, it's an area called the Robinson Zone. So actually we have what we call a dream team, which Matthew's part of the dream team, and he'll explain that a little more. He has a lot of exciting things going on there, which again, have never been done in the camp. So basically we're still just an exploration company, but a little more advanced. We're doing multiple things at the same time. And the whole purpose of this is hopefully, we call it real time. When our resources, further quantified, we'll have our permits to be able to mine and process. And you are aware we bought this facility called Temisting Testing Labs. We're getting that upgraded. And historically, that facility used to pour all the silver for the mines in the area. So I'll pass this over now to Matthew. Matthew's going to talk about the drill program and all the excitement that he's generating with the drill program on the Robinson Zone.
Yeah, Matthew.
Great. Well, I'll just give a little quick brief summary of what happened last year. We had a downhole camera come in for our initial pilot hole, which was the 50 to 70,000 gram per ton that went into our initial resource. The camera came in, it did the orientation, it took 3D view of the hole, and then we started initiating our 50,000 meter program. And from that initial discovery, we built our resource, 7 million plus ounces of silver. And then we started adopting, a strategic drill plan. We've been incorporating directional drilling. We've been using the downhole tools to orient the core. And from that, we've been able to start modeling the direction of these veins. And now we have it in our mind that we can expand the toolbox. So we've already used things like oriented drilling. We've used things like oriented core. And we've used other geochemical and geophysical techniques. But this new technique, especially going downhole, has provided us a lot better resolution at depth. And so we're going to expand our program to have a larger surface program with charge being put into the boreholes and get better resolution at depth. And I think this is really important because, as I said, we've got multiple veins now that are qualified. And we need to find these high-grade panels on as many of these veins as possible. And I think that the direction that we're going by using the best science is really encouraging. And I think we're well on our way to continue finding more of this. So it's been a very good year for us. And there's been a lot of exciting times. We've been doing very well with our drilling. Our team has been built. We have an excellent team. So it's continuing to go on as scheduled.
Yeah, great, Matt. I think investors really like the grades you're showing the market, but they are also interested in feasibility. So I understand that you currently are in an exploration stage, and there's much more work to be done until this can eventually sometime go into production. But how would that look like? So you have an existing mine, you have a vein system. How would you mine that?
Well, we've already initiated a lot of the preliminary work to get a ramp down. The ramp itself will be an exploration tool. We'll probably put the ramp down initially as an advanced exploration ramp. And so we can use this ramp both to extract the silver that we've already put in our resource, as well as any silver that we have in upcoming resources. And we can use the underground as an exploration tool. So in this camp, historically, it was visual mining, and visual mining was the way that they made these mines work. So now with the ramp, we have the opportunity to do a lot of long hole horizontal drilling, hit a lot more of these structures, open them up quickly, and we have the ability to incorporate visual cues like they did in the past. And we would have the ability to still use a lot of the science that we know now that is working underground. So it'll become cheaper, quicker, faster to expand this. And I've initiated with Frank a lot of the first steps. So we have a scope of work being processed. It will be completed at the end of January. And that scope of work is basically the design of where the ramp will go, how much ventilation is needed, the costing, and then that scope of work will go off to engineering firms. And we've also initiated the first steps for all of the permitting. So the gap analysis that indicates everything that we need for the environmental baseline, everything we need for municipal water or sewage, everything we need for water management, all that stuff is been commenced, and that actually will be done as well within the first month. So when that process is completed, then we will have the roadmap for all of the permitting for the next, say, 18 months, right, including the costing and the timelines.
And
so
how are the veins structured? So you have obviously cobalt and silver. So is it high-grade silver veins? And how is the cobalt grade in association with that?
Well, these vein systems are slightly heterogeneous. So what often happens is that you'll have a high-grade silver phase, and then you'll move into maybe a silver cobalt phase, and eventually you might have a cobalt vein. One of the most encouraging results that we had from mid-December was that we had a cobalt vein in the Robinson zone that contained 4 to 8 grams per ton gold. So that was a spectacular piece of information, and it gives a lot of context to potentially mining, because if the cobalt veins themselves don't have that extra added value, then it becomes hard to get the economics on a cobalt vein. Now you add 4 to 8 grams per ton gold to a cobalt vein, then that really increases the desire of putting resources on those cobalt veins. So we're really lucky at the Robinson that we've hit high grade silver, we've hit high grade silver cobalt, and we've hit cobalt with gold. And I believe based on our modeling, we can continue to find out where this gold trends. I believe it comes from the Archean, and so there might be part of our system that eventually would contain silver gold. That doesn't seem to be improbable to me. So getting back to your initial question about what's the grade of these cobalt veins, I mean, they will vary from 0.1% to multiple percent.
Okay, thank you. I would give it over to Frank again, because the whole point in cobalt production currently is targeting the battery market. At least I think so. So how do you ensure having battery grade? So maybe talk a little bit about Re2Ox and the planned battery pilot plant.
Yeah, see, originally we were actually in Japan and China about 2-3 years ago. And we did meet with the car manufacturers, and we also met with metal traders, and we met with a lot of Chinese battery manufacturers. So we met with Sumitomo. Sumitomo gave us the specs right away, and then we came home and we actually produced what we call Sumitomo spec cobalt sulfate. So we produced 200 grams, and so they said, well, that's wonderful. Can you give us 10 kilos? So we looked at making 10 kilos, and we found out to make 10 kilos will cost us about $10 million. So we decided for $10 million, we can build a pilot plant, which can produce more than 10 kilos. And then we produce this product for everybody. So in the process, we also find people wanted a nickel sulfate. We also have nickel, and we also have copper in our product. But it was the two metals. Mostly, I think nickel be more of a critical element in the battery, EV battery market right now. I don't see cobalt. There's not a lot of it around. It's very hard to get. The majority of it comes from the DRC. So what they're doing is they're changing the process chemistry of the batteries. They'll have more nickel, still some cobalt. Cobalt seems to be a critical element in the battery. You can't really remove it. So our intent is, once we build this pilot plant, to produce larger quantities to basically show the world proof of concept that the Re2Ox process can produce the product. And now we were kind of informed by one of my shareholders, Samsung wishes to use silver in their batteries. And apparently silver does guarantee you at least 500,000, I think they said miles, and can do about 1,000 recharges. So that's probably the best out there as an EV battery. Of course, there's always nickel and cobalt in there. So the pilot plant is basically to produce product for the end users. And so we've been targeting mostly the Asian, but now we're also targeting North Americans. And we did spare a fair amount of time in Germany. And apparently the Germans are also looking for these battery metals. So once the pilot plant is running, and the intent is to produce larger quantities for evaluation, and based on that product, we're hoping that the manufacturer says, look, we're interested in working with you. We believe the cobalt camp is still very young, although it's a very old camp. I think we're the only ones that are spending any great deal of money in a camp right now developing a resource. We do have what we call a dream team, which is our exploration people. I think in the last 50 years was the first time a discovery like this was made. These are what I call classical silver grades in the cobalt camp, which is, in the 200 ounces per ton range. But we'll be doing, probably our next resource, we'll bring it into what we call an operational grade. So when I worked here with Agnico in the cobalt camp, our operational grade was 12 to 25 ounces a ton silver. So we're able to make a very profitable operation at 12 to 25 and still threw the cobalt away. Now recovering the cobalt and the nickel, and of course the silver and the gold, which is like Matt mentioned, we knew was here, but we could never find it. And now that we found it, it actually enhances the overall resource equation, so to speak. So we can be extremely competitive. We're actually basing this production of this deposit on silver only. And basically, I can give my cobalt away and still be in the money. So it's a critical thing. A lot of moving parts. We're using the best of the best in the people in the industry. SGS has been really excellent in their ability to produce product for us. And that's why we've chosen to build a pilot plant. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of moving parts, but, we should look at this just as an exploration play. What a ramp. We might end up going through shaft because we're finding even more silver at depth. So it comes to a decision that, the contract will make which way we should be going. It's either a ramp or a shaft, but I think we might end up with a shaft. Then we'll drift off from the shaft on these mineralized zones, and then we'll get a better picture and hopefully more ounces. It's kind of a historical thing in a camp. You find it by drilling, and then you sink a shaft, and that's how you find your silver and your cobalt.
Great. Where can investors find your stock?
Well, the symbol is CCW. It's on the venture. We also have a listing on the Frankfurt Exchange. We also have a listing on, I think it's called a QX or QB on a NASDAQ. But most people trade the stock on the venture. They seem to find it easier to trade on the venture. Yeah. So it's CCW on the TSX venture.
Okay, great. Let's finish this with your current financial position. So how much money is in the bank? How are you going to spend money for 2021? And what's your plan for 2021?
Well, majority of, if you look at it, we raised a little under 12 million in the last few months. Mm-hmm. So we were very successful in raising money, which we're very pleased with. And I think we'll focus mostly on the drilling. And we might, like I said, expand the drilling program, but it comes to a point where by the drilling, it's probably cheaper to put on the shaft or a raft than continually trying to drill, because once you're underground, you find the mineralized zones much easier. So it could be that we will be focusing mostly on the drilling, at least up to the second quarter. And then, we'd like to work on our tailings. We have 2 high-grade tailings deposits, and some of the grades go over 3 ounces a ton, which is kind of a nice thing in tailings. And then, of course, we want to see if we can get into the underground at the castle. Now, we bought a scoop tram. It had to come from France. Apparently, nobody else makes these except the French. We want to buy an electric scoop tram, but that was 3 years out. So we bought a diesel one. And so we're lucky to get that diesel scoop tram. So we've already tested it out. It works quite well. So we're going to amend the permits. And then our intent is to take a bulk sample, of course, out of the number 1 level, and then we'll see what kind of numbers we come back by processing the sample at missing testing labs.
I don't even know what this part of what this machine is, but you have a plan and you're going to make it happen at Robinson Zone at Castle. So it was a pleasure to talk to both of you again, and
always, Florian.
Thanks a lot for this interview.
Thank you very much,
Florian.